On today's show, the Kings lose HB, no dose of double T, and Barry and I play a game of Kings Fair or Foul. That's all coming up on the Royal Report.
Welcome everyone. Happy Friday and welcome back to Royal Rebounds TV. This is episode 6 of the Royal Report, a Sacramento Kings sports talk show. If you are a Kings fan, make sure you smash up that like button. And if it's your first time to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Thanks for joining us on this fabulous Friday. Let's get things started the same way we always do with some news from around the league. The Phoenix Suns are now tied for the 11th longest winning streak in NBA history at 18 games after defeating the Pistons on Thursday night 114-103. The Suns started just 1-3 but now own the league's best record. Phoenix's last loss came at the hands of your Sacramento Kings back on October 27th. It won't get any easier for them as they approach the Lakers' record 33-game win streak. The Suns match up with the Warriors again tonight. Barry, I believe Steph Curry just added to his trophy case this week as well.
Yes, Steph Curry is playing very, very well. Him and Kevin Durant just were named Conference Players of the Month for both October and November. They are both averaging a cool 28 points per game. Durant's shooting 54% from the field, and Steph Curry is shooting 41% from three, which is actually 2 percentage points down from his career average.
Crazy. They are both dominating. And speaking of domination, the Memphis Grizzlies set an NBA record for margin of victory on Thursday night after defeating the Oklahoma City Thunder by, get this, Barry, 73 points. The final was 152-79. Memphis led by 36 at halftime and had 9 of 12 players score in double figures. The only thing they missed on the court that night was Ja Morant. They shot a blistering 62% from the field and 53% from three. My goodness, it was bad, Barry.
That was crazy. You know what they say, when you run into a bear in the wild, you're supposed to play dead. Maybe the Thunder should take that advice next time. The injury bug has hit quite a few teams around the NBA. We've seen the Sacramento Kings be affected by injuries to Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes. Marvin Bagley has been out dealing with a non-COVID related sickness. Now it seems to have hit the Minnesota Timberwolves. Karl Anthony Towns goes down with a lower back injury after a fall. Damian Lillard is confirmed to have a lower ab injury confirmed by an MRI, and Bam Adebayo is out and ready to undergo some thumb surgery. Good news for the Lakers, though. LeBron James is back on the court after taking quite a few COVID tests. He is officially negative, and I think that first test might have been a false positive.
It's just incredible how many big-name players have been out in the NBA over the past 2 seasons. But enough with league news. It's time for your Sacramento Kings WeekCap. The Kings played 1.5 good games this week, resulting in a 1-2 record. Sunday, the game was over before it began in Memphis. Tuesday, they let a 59-50 halftime lead over the Lakers go to waste. And Wednesday, the Kings got a win over a Clippers team that was resting Paul George. Despite some really poor play from the Kings this week, they've still managed to win 3 of their last 5 games. So, Barry, where is your confidence meter currently at with this team?
Oh, that's really hard to say. I feel like I'm riding pretty average. That blowout to the Memphis Grizzlies was really devastating. You know, they played well against the Lakers, end up getting blown out in that game as well. They started out hot again against the LA Clippers, were able to win that game, even though the Clippers went on a late rally. A lot of PTSD for us Kings fans, but happy to see at least one victory this week. That brings me to our next category, fair or foul. This is a category from last year's show where we are going to say a statement and the other one is going to choose whether that statement is fair or foul. You ready, Calvin?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Number 1, DeAaron Fox has 0 leadership skills.
Well, I'm actually going to go fair and foul on this one. I mean, to say that DeAaron Fox has 0 leadership skills is 100% foul. You don't get this far as a basketball player to be a max contract guy and to be the franchise player with 0 leadership skills. That's just not how it works. However, I think it is fair to say that we haven't seen enough leadership skills from DeAaron Fox. It's hard to say what goes on in the locker room and behind closed doors when the cameras aren't off, but we've talked about the fact that the Kings need a star player or a player, a veteran player on this team to light a fire under them in certain situations, like when they're getting blown out against Memphis or when they're up big against the Lakers and they make a huge run and end up taking the lead back. The Kings have no problem getting momentum, but they have a lot of problems losing it. And leadership is one of those things that will help those problems.
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox was known to have a swagger and a fiery personality in college. We saw a little bit of it his rookie year in the NBA, but he seems like the quiet leader type, which leaves a lot of us Kings fans to have a lot to be desired from him. I wouldn't say he has 0 leadership skills, but I would like to see some more skills from him to help lead this young Sacramento Kings team.
I agree. All right, Barry, our next statement is Ben Simmons is still available. Is it time for the Kings to make a move?
Well, I am going to say fair. The Kings do need to make a move. I don't know if it's for Ben Simmons, but I think I'm speaking for all Kings fans here when I say we are tired of losing. We are tired of getting blown out by other teams. We've already seen Coach Walton be fired this year. He was the scapegoat. I feel like we need a new scapegoat now. I don't know who that will be, but the Kings definitely need to make a move.
I agree they need to make a move. I'm just not sure this is the right one. I'm going to say foul on this still because ultimately I don't believe that it's going to take anything less than DeAaron Fox to get Ben Simmons. My biggest concern with this trade is I don't know what type of condition Ben Simmons is in. I haven't seen him play in forever. I haven't seen him work out. I haven't seen him at practice. He has these mental issues that are hanging over his head, no pun intended. This just doesn't seem like a move that is going to dramatically help the team. I realize that Ben Simmons has a lot of things that he can bring to the table, things that would really help Sacramento. Defense, wing depth, and of course, he is a potential all-star. But I just have a lot of trouble getting over the fact that I haven't seen this guy on the court in so long. I don't know if this move is going to ultimately help the Kings situation.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Kings should go after Marcus Smart.
This one is going to be fair for me. I agree that the Kings need more shooting. I think they need more wing depth. Marcus Smart is not the greatest shooter, but what did we just talk about? Lack of leadership. Marcus Smart is exactly that type of person who will bring it every night defensively. I don't think he'll have any trouble getting in anyone's face and, bringing up the team when they're playing down. This could be a really positive move for the Kings, depending on what they give up to have to get him. But I think Marcus Smart could help this team in a lot of ways that go beyond the box score.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's amazing even to think that a guy like this could potentially be available. He just signed a 4-year, $77 million contract extension in August. He is the dog that this Kings team needs. He seems to have had a brush up with some of the star players on the Boston Celtics team. That's what happens when you're not playing well. This guy gets on people's nerves. And I guess those pretty boys over there were not too happy about it. But I would welcome Marcus Smart on this Kings team. I think he would be the guy to light a fire under these Kings players. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to jump into Harrison Barnes.
Welcome back to the Royal Report. The Kings are now 2-2 since Harrison Barnes has been sidelined with a foot sprain. Sacramento swingman got off to a hot start, but has cooled off a bit recently, averaging 19 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal on the season. The Kings might be 500 without him, but this is a huge loss for the team, right, Barry?
It is a big loss. Harrison Barnes started out so hot in this season and helped lead the Kings to a really hot start with a very difficult schedule. I know many Kings fans, including myself, were very ecstatic seeing the Kings above 500 a few games into the season. Harrison Barnes' play has dropped off a little bit, but an injury to his foot has kept him sidelined for the past 4 games. I think some good news for Kings fans. We've seen Harrison Barnes sent to Stockton to get his legs under him, so I expect him to be back very, very soon.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. He really is such a big piece of this team. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. The guy is shooting 40% from 3 and 85% at the free throw line. Those are 2 areas that the Kings have struggled with almost the most since he's been gone. Not to mention his leadership, and he's second on the team in rebounds. He really, really is such a vital piece to this team's success. And even though Sacramento has been able to salvage a 500 record without him, they can't hold on to that for much longer. So we definitely need HB back soon.
Speaking of rebounds, one of the Kings' biggest rebounders, Tristan Thompson, has been sidelined the last 2 games for who knows what. Really surprising move. Tristan Thompson has played 0 minutes against both the Clippers and the Lakers. These are pretty big teams, and Harrison Barnes just had his 2 biggest outings of the season before this in wins over the Portland Trailblazers and a triple overtime win over the Lakers. Cal, what do you think's going on with Double T?
Man, I really don't know. It's incredibly confusing to me. I understand the thought process of playing Alex Len against bigger lineups, having that matchup dependency between the 2 of them. But Tristan Thompson brings so much energy and effort, which is, again, one of those things that we've been talking about the Kings struggling with over the past few games the most. I really don't get it. I'm going to read some numbers here. First of all, did you realize that Marvin Bagley is now averaging more minutes a game than Tristan Thompson? Thompson is averaging 14 minutes a game, Bagley 17.5 minutes a game. Tristan Thompson is the 4th leading rebounder on this team and 2nd in offensive rebounds at 2.4 per game. He's also 3rd on the team in player efficiency rating at over 17. That's for a minimum of 15 games played. So, Barry, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me why they can't find more minutes for him.
This was their big offseason acquisition. He was supposed to bring leadership. He was supposed to bring toughness. He was supposed to bring rebounding to this Sacramento Kings team. We saw him in the in the preseason, encouraging these young guys. We saw him as a very, very vocal point on this Kings team. And we haven't seen that the past 2 games, which is very, very unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. Speaking of unfortunate, have you seen Buddy Hield shoot lately? Buddy Hield, so far this season, is posting career lows in shooting percentage and 3-point shooting percentage, taking him from Buddy Buckets to Buddy Chuckets. Turnovers and terrible shots have led Hield from a potential 6th Man of the Year candidate to a 6th Man of Fear candidate every time he touches the ball. Barry, will Buddy fix his shooting woes, or is he the first trade domino to fall for the Kings?
I think he might be the first trade domino to fall. He is shooting career lows in field goal and 3-point percentage. I think Buddy Chuckets is my new favorite nickname of his. It's so unfortunate. We had really high hopes for this guy. He went through a couple really good games this season. He passed Peja for most threes in franchise history for the Kings. And then we've seen the bad. We've seen, 2 of 13 nights, 3 of 15 nights from 3-point range. When he is not making shots, this Kings team does not look good at all.
They certainly do not. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll turn the show over to you. Cowbell questions.
are going to ring the cowbell here, and we are going to answer your cowbell questions. If you do have a question for us to answer on a future show, just leave it down below in the comments. Hashtag cowbell questions. All right, Calvin, first question for you. Should we blow this popsicle stand up by Dennis?
Well, I'm not really sure what you mean by blow it all up. Does that mean trade everyone? Does that mean trade your most valuable pieces? I'm going to overall say no. I don't think it's time to completely blow it up. First and foremost, because I still don't want to see DeAaron Fox traded. I'm with him at least through the rest of this season. I want to stick it out with him, see him make an all-star team and become the player that we all think he can be. I do think that it's time to make a move. And like I said before, I believe Buddy Hield, maybe a Marvin Bagley, something like that. That should be the first trade here to happen. The Kings and Monty McNair have doubled down on saying they think that Alvin Gentry can reclaim some of that swagger they had earlier on in the season. The Kings might have gotten off to a really rough start, but if you look at the standings, they're really not that far out of not just being a playoff team or a play-in team, but being one of the higher seed playoff teams. I mean, the 4th seed right now is only a game or two above 500, so there's still time for the Kings to right the ship. I do think that the roster as it's composed right now is not quite what it should be, though.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's not time to blow this team up, but they definitely need to make a move, and they need to bring some more talent to Sacramento. DeAaron Fox cannot do it all by himself. He's a stellar player, but he needs help.
100%. All right, let's take our next question here. Do you still have trust in Monty McNair, Barry?
I do. I think that Monty has not done anything up until this point to make me not trust him. I think he's drafted well. I think he's done a lot of things to help this Kings team in the future. He took over a pretty rough roster with a lot of unhappy players. It seems like most of these guys are happy to be in Sacramento at this point. It seems he hasn't added any bad contracts. He hasn't traded any future picks. He has not done anything to hurt this team in the future. I think he's in the process of building up assets, and we'll see how he goes from there.
Yeah, I have to agree with this answer as well. I haven't lost confidence in him yet. He hasn't done anything to make me lose confidence in him. He didn't sign Fox to a max contract, whether or not you believe that to be the right move. He didn't hire Luke Walton. He really hasn't hired his guy yet to be the coach of this team. He re-signed Rashawn Holmes on a really good contract, and he drafted well with Halliburton and Davion Mitchell. So, yeah, I think absolutely this guy in the short amount of time, given what he started with, has done an admirable job as GM.
Yes, he's done everything he could with the tools he was given. All right, Calvin. Atlanta was interested in Buddy a while back. What do you think of a Buddy for Bogey swap? This is by Youngblood.
Yeah, if you had asked me this question maybe a year or even half of a year ago, I don't know if I would have been as for it as I am today. In the past, I saw Bogdanovic as much more of a create for himself type player, which is not what this team needs because they already have so many of those players. However, since Bogey has gone to Atlanta, he's really relished in the sort of catch and shoot role playing off of Trae Young, and that is something that I think the Kings really, really need right now. Last year, Bogdanovic shot 44% from 3 and 90% at the free throw line, and this year in 20 games played, he's right around 40% from 3 again. So I think he could totally help this team, and I definitely rely on him more consistently from outside now than I do Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I think this would be a lateral move for both teams, but I think it's time for Buddy Hield to move on. And Bogey might be one of the best players you could get in potential Buddy Hield trade. I don't know if Atlanta says yes to this deal, but if they are open to it, I say pull the trigger. All right, that's enough for cowbell questions. Thank you all for all your questions. And like I said earlier, if you do want to submit a question for next week's show, just write it down below in the comments, hashtag cowbell questions.
That's right. Thanks, as always, for your submissions. Let's move on now and talk about Alvin Gentry. The Kings are 3-3 since Gentry took over for Luke Walton as head coach. We've seen the team play with more pace, and more energy. They just haven't been able to sustain that energy for a full 48 minutes. Gentry currently has the interim tag placed on him. Does he realistically have a shot at removing that tag next season, though?
That is a really tough question. You know, it's only been 6 games here, 3-3, which is a decent record, but it's really going to depend on how the rest of the season goes for him. Alvin Gentry loves to play fast. That's exactly what the Kings are looking for. I could see a move where they potentially bring in a Mike D'Antoni and keep Alvin Gentry on the bench. We saw that in Phoenix running the 7 seconds or less offense. Obviously, this team doesn't have a Steve Nash. It doesn't have an Amari Stoudemire or even a Shaquille O'Neal on the roster. But I think Alvin Gentry has an opportunity to potentially stay with the Kings past this year. I just don't know if it will be as the head coach.
Yeah, he's definitely got a shot to earn his spot as head coach permanently. We've seen him do it before. I think he has a few things working against him. We talked about Monty McNair not having hired his guy yet. I think he likes Alvin Gentry and he likes the way that this team is playing. But given the fact that McNair hasn't picked his man to run the franchise yet, that seems to be, the last piece of a GM's reconstruction of a franchise. So that's definitely working against him. However, Alvin Gentry has a ton of experience. He is running a good system for this team. I think the players are going to eventually like playing for him if they don't already. I do think that he's probably going to have to get the Kings into the playoffs, though, in order to keep the head coaching job moving forward.
Yeah, I agree there. All right, we're going to wrap up the show here with next week. It's a pretty light week for your Sacramento Kings. Only 2 games. They play against the LA Clippers on Saturday, the 11-11 LA Clippers that they just defeated. I think Paul George is probably going to be playing in this game, so it will be a bit of a steeper slope for the Sacramento Kings. And then they go to play the Orlando Magic at 5-18. They have the second worst record in the NBA. We hope the Kings can go at least 1-1 in this stretch, potentially 2-0. But it is a good week for the Kings to take a break, to take a breather, to have a couple more practices, and hopefully get a bunch of these guys healthy and on the same page.
Yeah, you really hit some key points there for me. Rest and relaxation is one of them. They're coming off blowout losses this week. They just played a 3-overtime game not too long ago. They haven't really had a lot of chance to practice since Alvin Gentry has been the head coach. So this is a great opportunity for the Kings to kind of hit the reset button, get back to the drawing board, and continue to work and build on getting better as a team. And as far as the games go, yes, Paul George is definitely going to make a big difference if he is to play tomorrow against Sacramento. But they still match up, I think, pretty well with the Clippers as long as they can continue to push the pace like we saw them do just the other night. And of course, the Magic is a very winnable game here for the Kings as well. So a chance for them to get back on track this week. We want to thank you for watching and joining us today on the Royal Report. Be sure to join us for the Royal Rebounds podcast. We will be live tomorrow after the Kings and Clippers in Golden One Center. And we will be back for another episode of the Royal Report next Friday. As always, thanks for watching and go Kings.
Thanks, guys.